It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.
Hi, I'm Peter Lawrence.
Hey there, I'm Cooper Miller.
And I'm Kyle Bacher. And today we're going to talk about the doing AI at home on your own hardware versus in the cloud. Cooper's joining us. He's been monkeying around with Amazon Bedrock or AWS Bedrock, which is their AI kind of, what would you call Bedrock? How would you describe it?
They're managed generative AI solution space.
Yeah, service offering based around generative AI, large language models.
I know they have the Stable Diffusion XL baked in right now. What else do they have in terms of AI running on Bedrock? Is that the only thing?
Yep. Yeah, so they have like the text generation and then like the chat Q&A or like chatbot options.
Amazon Q is their new, I think, AI that's going to be baked into all their stuff. So I've only used the one piece of it. I was looking at pricing and all of that. It's like, okay, if we're going to start goofing around with this, like, hey, I created 1,000 images today. All right. Well, why is this bill on fire? I don't know. What I've noticed, and I think, I don't know if there's been a lot of news about it. It seems like ChatGPT has been kind of throttling back. It seems like there's a governor on it now.
Oh,
Peter
for sure.
Peter had to tell me what the word was.
That's right.
It's like, yeah, your golf cart could go 100, but we're only going to let you go 20. I noticed that there was some buzz about the number of prompts per hour you could do, and I hit my limit like 3 times in one day. It was 50. People were saying 30, and by people I mean random strangers on the internet that right. I don't know if they're right or not.
They're totally qualified to base their counts, and they do all their research.
Right. So the point of all that is there's got to be hardware behind all this that can do the work, and it's pretty much GPU. Now, I don't know if that's changing, if they're going to be able to code around that or however that's going to work. But I decided to install some AI stuff, and I got a new gaming laptop with the ulterior motive of running some AI tools on it because I didn't want to have to pay for anything. So I had an image generator and a music generator. I didn't do a local GPT yet, but it's a hammer. Like if I'm going to generate, if I try to bite off more than I can chew, like I can do audio or I can do pictures. I can't do both. And then they came out with a video version of Stable Video Diffusion. I did the simplest, shortest, lowest, like easiest thing in like 4 hours. It'll be done in 4 hours. I'm like, oh my gosh. So my system's already obsolete, so I'm just going to throw it away. 12 gig of VRAM was not enough.
That's not enough.
So my question, the big question of the day, I guess, is are we going to have to go in-house, use our own hardware, things like that, versus going with cloud solution?
Let me just start by saying that this is sort of, I'll give you a twofold answer. This is almost the ideal situation for cloud solutions, right? A heavy load, not used constantly, periodic, spike loads. That's like spin up, spin down. Boy, doesn't that sound like cloud to you, right? And it really does. But at the same time, there's a lot of questions around AI right now, still to be answered.
Yeah.
We're trying to answer them on this podcast, but there's a lot of questions. And I know you and I were talking the other day, Kyle, about sort of some of the modeling and how you can have sort of a clean model or a wide open model. And
you can have the safeties on or the safeties off if you're doing it locally and you're going to manage all that.
Right.
The model it's using on Bedrock is there's not any like nefarious. You're not going to get in trouble at work if the image pops up and someone sees it. Like it's not going to be used for, you're not going to be able to use it for evil. Although people are trying to get around that with creative prompting and just arguing with it. Come on, do it. I'll tip you $200. stuff like that. But yeah, I think you're right. The cloud is going to be able to take care of, I think managing your own infrastructure in that space is going to be expensive.
But it's still going to be a lot of work to maintain it in the cloud too.
Right.
So somebody's got to spin stuff up or spin stuff down. Now, Cooper, you've been working with Bedrock a little bit, right? And just kind of a preview on sort of some of the stuff that Bedrock's doing. How do you feel about, like, does that spin stuff up, spin stuff down for you, or?
It's completely managed. And I've honestly been really impressed with how managed it's been. The evolution, from my understanding, like on the AWS side, for the longest time, they had SageMaker. I mean, they still do. That's their like primary ML offering.
Yep.
Where if you're doing like custom training, you're building out your models. It's like that's where you'll do it. Kind of with the Bedrock world, you don't have to worry about any of that. It's just, hey, let me look at this drop down. Let me select the model I want to use. They're coming out with like the new features, so you can add in like your knowledge bases, or if you have proprietary data or like company specific data, you can create those data sets and then like link them with the foundational models so like you can talk to them. But it's really impressive just like how abstracted they've made it, so you can leverage these like the chatbots, models, just everything. It's been impressive.
So I like the idea of that kind of more controlled environment where they're doing all the legwork to make sure that the safeties are on for what they're putting out there, because I can see that being, it's like, do you want the burden of that on your own IT versus
well, and it's fun, like from what I'm seeing, there's still, because this is like super new. So in the past 2 weeks on the Bedrock front, I've seen them change like some features that were in like preview, or you needed to talk to like account managers to get it enabled. Now they're kind of like open, or maybe like in preview, but you can play around with it without having to do special work. And one of those things is, I forget like what the phrasing they're using, but it's just essentially like a governance stage. So you can take the models and then you can add in your own like additional set of rules. So I think one of the examples they provided was like, hey, you can't give financial advice. And that was like an extra set of limits that you could like attach onto a model that you're trying to use or provide with customers.
Yeah. Which really ruins my stock market. So back to your laptop, Kyle. Like you've got an extremely beefy laptop. We've talked about it on the pod before, but it's an i9 and it's got 32 or 64
cores, I think.
Yeah.
And 12 gigs of VRAM, the NVIDIA RTX 4080.
And
I was very happy with the price on this one.
Right.
I
got. Now when you wanted to start, did you just download like the AI program and then hit go?
Yeah, you go on the internet. There's a website. It's got one button, says install AI. You click it. Okay,
that's not how I understand what you did.
Like my job has always been like a master configurator. I do better with buttons and knobs than I do with code. This was kind of a whole different experience for me. I had to install Python, and then realizing I was going to be running multiple environments, I got some good advice from Bennett. He pointed me to Anaconda, which allows you to spin up and spin down different environments because of all the dependencies. There's all these things that have to be installed and have to work together with other versions of things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, your PyTorch isn't going to work with your version of CUDA. I'm like, what? Huh? So I'm going through the process and like pouring through instructions and multiple videos. And you always got to be careful because the stuff changes so fast. If you just copy and paste a script, the version, like the command, the what do they call them? The commandlets or whatever in there,
the shell
could
scripts.
be out of date. So
you're like, nope, this is way out of date. Why are you trying to do this?
Yeah, this is like 6 versions ago. You read the article, it's like, oh, this is old. This is from April.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing, like I'm not a programming genius, and I don't have history with using programming languages, GitHub, that kind of stuff. When I got stuck, I had AI, and I just copy and paste the error into ChatGPT, and it would pretty much save me and get me through that to the next thing.
So the
and then
machine
I had
was making another machine for you?
It was. So that whole experience, the fact that I could get it up and running and working, I don't want to sell myself short, but I'm it's like I've always been in that kind of tech support configurator front end GUI space. More than the back end stuff. So the fact that I could get in there and figure it out and do it, I like that. It was promising for me. Okay, maybe now I can do more of these things. I don't have to be afraid of like code. I don't have, it wasn't that hard to, once I finally got it in there and, I'm learning a whole new user interface. I'm learning, like everything was pretty much new. And like 6 weeks ago, I got it, I think. Okay. And I used it to create some really cool stuff that I can't tell either one of you about. You'll see it on Monday, but I can't, I've never been able to draw very well.
Right.
And it's like something I wish I had that talent. Mm-hmm. Some people just are born with that artistic, it's like, it's crazy. Like my nephew
or lines like that. And you know what he's drawing already?
Yeah. Like, how did you just draw a perfect circle? You're like 6 months old. I don't get it. Yeah. I got to use a cookie cutter and I got to use a stamp. No. So that like being able to be creative with that tool. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you this, it's not just you type in something and it gives you what you want.
Well, because you kind of have, it's kind of programming, right? You're programming the prompt to give you what you want. Like, draw me a perfect circle is fairly simple, but draw me a circle that looks like the Eiffel Tower is in England with cheesecake and baguettes, right? Like, it's going to get confused and draw you just nothing, right?
Right. If it's something as simple as draw me a circle, it's like, well, how big? Like, what color? Like, all these, you just have to accept that it's going to just decide and give you a circle. Right. And you're part of the generative process. You're not only the prompt engineer, but you're the person that looks at the result and then says, okay, now take this and move forward with it or redo it, start over again. And writing prompts is a whole new world.
I've heard that it's really a thing, that it's not just like anybody does it. It's not basically talking to your mom about something. It's talking to your mom with some specific details and lots of things that really get down there and in the nitty gritty.
Like with, so I did some stuff. I'm paying for ChatGPT.
Okay.
And because anything comes along, if there's an option to pay, I'm right there. Don't give me the free stuff.
Can I have a subscription that keeps going forever, please?
Yeah. Well, now it ties into Dolly.
Okay.
Dolly 3. I found that Dolly 3 there's a cool factor there that I wasn't getting from Stable Diffusion. Now, could be my choice of models. I mean, there's a lot of settings and options. The UI for Stable Diffusion is this complex thing. There's all these options, buttons, levers. You got your prompts, then you got your negative prompts. And then you've got your model, and then you've got, okay, how creative should AI be versus following what you told it to follow?
Okay.
And
you were talking about Dolly 3 is what you were talking about? Is that a...
Yeah, Dolly 3 is the image generator.
Okay.
That is from OpenAI.
And but OpenAI does ChatGPT, right?
Does ChatGPT, yeah.
Okay.
And now, like with ChatGPT 4, they tied in Dolly, they tied in Bing.
Well, so, of course, naturally. Who doesn't want more Bing in their life?
Grab me the colors from this site.
Okay.
And incorporate it into this image.
Nice.
Or and it did it. Or maybe it got lucky and I thought it did it. But there's just more and more of that stuff tying into it.
Okay, before we get too far down that path, let's circle back to our gas. Now, Cooper, you've had a little bit different experience. You've been doing things without buying a laptop and downloading lots of libraries and things like that. What's your experience kind of been like?
Well, I was going to say, like, we poked around it with Kyle. Like, we were looking at the Bedrock, like their version or like their UI with the Stable Diffusion piece.
Sure.
And because I remember hearing Kyle like talk about all the options kind of like locally on the laptop, and then on the AWS side, I think they literally only have like 4 options.
Well, they don't want you to get carried away.
No. They're keeping it pretty tight so far.
There's way more through the API that it can do than what you're given in the prompt or the UI.
So that might be sort of to reduce costs or maintain sort of a level. It's also sort of they're just releasing this onto the world too, right?
Well, and I think they're trying to like slow roll it to keep people from having a horrible experience with it and just giving up. And they're really want to get it right. So they're like, it's got a lot of bumpers in place.
Yep.
It's enough for people to go in there and like generate some cool stuff. If you want way, way, way more control, if you want no governors, wild, wild west, then you're going to have to do stuff locally or spin up something in the cloud to do it and actually install all of that yourself in the cloud.
Well, I was kind of curious, like, because I was talking with Nick briefly about it yesterday, and he was saying like one of the things he's been super impressed about is kind of the size of the models, or just the barrier entry to like run things locally on a computer that might not be a massive desktop. It's just becoming like easier to run, say like on a laptop. But I'm curious, like if you kind of have expectations, or if you imagine like the video generation piece will get easier to run on your laptop. So instead of like 4 hours, you might get down to like an hour.
Well, I think we're going to see kind of the same thing that we saw with the demand for streaming. Well, now we need like better video compression. Like if we want people to watch movies over the internet, if we want Netflix that doesn't come to our mailbox and then sit for 6 months because you forgot to send them back, there's some things that have to happen infrastructure wise and like software wise, or whatever they call it at that level, but with compression and all those other tools. I think AI is going to be a similar thing, that it's going to be more and more efficient. And maybe require less of the hardware as it gets better.
But I'm not so sure, because I mean, with blockchain, I don't think we ever got down to needing less hardware. I don't think we ever made it to that.
Yeah, but as cryptocurrencies die, all of that blockchain that was using GPU is freed up for AI, right?
I agree. So, but back to you, Cooper. You were talking about like there's only 4 parameters, but you could still do some stuff with it, right?
Oh yeah, yep. Trying to remember the exact parameters, but I think it had the main ones where it's like, oh, how random do I want this to be, or like how close do I want it to follow the prompt for the image that I'm trying to generate?
Yeah. And did it take you 6 weeks of software installation to get up and running, or was it a little bit quicker than that?
It might have taken like 6 seconds. I just had to like wait for the page to load. Well, and I think I can mention too, like, because the AWS has, I mean, they have like APIs for the services as well. And I haven't looked into like all of the options that Kyle was mentioning, say like the UI versus the API. Like, I don't know if I haven't seen yet if you do have like all the bells and whistles, kind of outside of the UI.
Well, and then there's all the different models. There's so many options, models, and different things, that extensions that tie into that.
So did you just throw a dart at a dartboard of model names and pick it out randomly, or how did you go about selecting your model to use at home, Kyle?
The first thing I did was do the basic like stable diffusion, which was I think 1.0. But then those earlier ones were not clean. So then
what do you mean with clean?
They're swearing.
What's trained into the model.
Yeah.
There's images, there's things. Yeah. There's stuff that happens that people do on the internet. It does drive technology forward, but like I wanted to use it for good, not evil. And so I wanted to turn all the safeties on. There's pre-built negative prompts you can put in. So I just like turn that on. There's other ways of, it's the model you choose and then the negative prompts, and you get kind of this safe space to work in to create stuff where you're not going to be shocked at what it comes back with. And then model selection is a big part of that, because there's clean models and there's ones that are not clean. I guess safe for work models and not safe for work models is how it would.
So when we talk about models, what is a model? Just a big file?
The neural net is the thinking, and the model is like all the training, the memory of that. So if you have a model that you trained on, like, what's the difference between a dog and a cat? So not a dog, dog, and it's all dogs and cats. So that's, now it knows, and then the neural net part of it, the thinking part of it, would go through there and use that to come up with like to answer the prompt.
Okay.
Well, if you say, draw me a picture of a squirrel,
Mhm.
it doesn't know what a squirrel is.
Because you've
Never
only
told
trained
it
it
what
on
a
cats and
squirrel is.
dogs.
Okay. That's a real oversimplification. If there's any
Right.
real AI experts and stuff, they're going to be laughing at me. But
But you get your model, and that
yeah.
model has been trained by somebody
Right.
going through and feeding
Yeah.
it cats and dogs, and then you've got a cat dog model that you go and get.
Yeah. And it's, I think, also the weights of what a chat GPT does, or, you know, it's just predicting like the next
word, right?
Yeah. So for breakfast, I had biscuits and
Gravy, of course.
yeah. So gravy is the highest value like option.
Yeah. Breakfast, biscuits and gravy. It's not biscuits and chowder.
Right. So my positive prompt is finish this sentence. My negative prompt is the word gravy. And now it's like biscuits and
it just says chowder.
It can't do gravy. Yeah, that's chowder. It's like, what was this?
Chowder,
Did
the second most popular one.
No one asked for this combo. But you know what? It's really good because I used to work at Red Lobster, and I take one of those Cheddar Bay biscuits, and I put it in a soup cup, and I put chowder over it and a hunk of butter, and delight. Anyway,
so it is the second most popular combination in your model,
yes,
Kyle,
based
on what your experiences. That's nice.
You know, the hardware, the compute power, the infrastructure keeping up, whether that's in your house on your super laptop or in the cloud, you're still hitting constraints. Like,
do you feel like you should have gotten a desktop for this, or is laptop an okay way to start?
I mean, if I was really gonna go nuts, like I got what would do the job for what I wanted to do at the time, which was Baldur's Gate 3. Also being able to do that.
Is that what model? What model is that?
So I went a few steps up over what I really needed to run the game.
Sure.
So I could monkey around with this other stuff and not have to wait forever. If I had a desktop, I could have gone much beefier with the hardware.
You think you would have replaced the graphics card after you found the 12 meg was too small? You'd have been like, now I can just rip this out and put a different one in.
Well, the 4090 is over $2,000.
Small potatoes for the 20 minutes that it saves you.
The next step up is what I paid for the whole laptop. Now I can take that laptop, trade it in for the video card, and then go buy all the other stuff.
There you go.
No, I mean, I would love to have $5,000, $10,000 to sink into a super powerful desktop, or $30,000 to get a H100, which is NVIDIA's super GPU they're making for AI. And I saw a chart of their sales, and it's like Amazon and Microsoft just loading up on them.
They're sitting at the end of the runway and just taking everything off the
lottery
line.
basket that they're dropping into at the factory.
So that's kind of the cost to get up and running at home is a pretty serious gaming laptop. And Cooper, you were talking that you haven't hit any sort of cost yet, right? Okay.
It depends.
Okay, for those watching at home, you saw him give us the old kind of
little
gesture.
Bit. So at the surface level, if you just want to generate some images, if you just want to generate some text responses using the base foundation models that Amazon provides, it's actually really cheap. Unless you're going crazy, it's super reasonable.
Are we talking pennies, dollars, quarters, nickels, stacks of hundreds? Okay.
Yeah, pennies. I think pennies will add up to some dollars, but it's not gonna crack the piggy bank. But if you want to start adding custom data, then you're gonna need to set up. So in the demos I've been doing, Amazon has a service called OpenSearch, which traditionally OpenSearch, you could use it for storing logs and various things like that, and then you can search through those logs, say more efficiently than with other ways. But at least with the Bedrock example, you would use OpenSearch, and then you would take your custom data, and the custom data could be text. You do some magic, and then it goes from text, gets converted into numbers that the Bedrock or foundational models can kind of make sense of.
Yep.
But on the OpenSearch side, they have a serverless option, but it's essentially compute. So you have to pay for compute.
Sure.
And that can add up, like if you're continuously running, keeping it running continuously. I think the cheapest option they have for like the serverless is like $700 a month. So if you're doing that, then that'll
eventually get you to laptop dollars there, I think.
Yeah.
Without
that's a pretty specific use case.
Right.
Generating image after image after image, like if you're doing that kind of thing. What's the and now there's the stable video diffusion thing to make videos from pictures.
Mm-hmm.
What non-image generation, non-video generation type stuff? I know that the music generation, because I installed Meta's audio AI locally because it's open source.
Sure.
What is it called? AudioCraft. And so I installed that, and that is also like, I can't do both. I'm doing I do the music thing. I put my prompt in, and I got to walk away, read a book, come back. It's as much a load on my system as doing the images is.
Right.
What about like chat bots? What kinds of AI are going to be a drain like that outside of audio and video and images?
I mean, Cooper, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the chatbot stuff that AWS has been demoing lately? It looks amazing, right? Super simple.
Yeah, I guess I can talk to you a little bit. And I might like preface, not an AI expert, and at least on some of like the more low level details. I might not be aware, but I know
of the three.
We're going to have a deeper dive on
expert.
this. Yeah, we're going to have a deeper dive.
But no, so like with the chatbot, or like the text generation models that I've seen on Amazon so far. So I've been playing around with Bedrock for like the past 2 weeks. When I first started, I think they had maybe like four to seven text generation models available.
Okay.
Now I think they have maybe like 17.
Yeah.
So they've added like Amazon specific ones. They've added Facebook's like Llama models.
Right.
Some of the primary ones are Anthropic and their Claude models, which prior to like looking at Bedrock, I hadn't heard of Anthropic or the Claude models. From my understanding with them, they do a big focus on like the security or like kind of the privacy. So if it's generating a response, it has some like ethics baked into it, or it's going to give you a pretty good response.
It's awesome.
It gives you a response that's ethical and clean, and you don't have to feel nervous about using it, right?
And I know they have a few other like text generation ones, but the Claude model is the big one. And then Amazon, they've released some of their own kind of text generation models. I think they're calling them like the Titan models. But I haven't played around with those too much. That's mostly been
It's been a week.
Models.
I mean, Kyle had 5 or 6, but
yeah, I'm so advanced now. Yeah, I thought, what would it take to run a GPT on your own hardware?
Well, I mean, based on just what ChatGPT is running, like you were saying, some of the rumors about, cutting down the number of responses per hour and things like that, they're running a lot of Microsoft Cloud hardware, I believe. And forgive me if I'm wrong. I'm just guessing based on the partnership, not based on anything else. So it's probably chewing up quite a bit of cycles.
And then you're not all using it at once.
Right.
So there's a scaling thing that's going on. There's a kind of there's a huge appetite for it, but
100%.
It's not, I don't know a lot of business folks that are really even tapping into it yet that much.
We are in the experimental stages of new technology. Absolutely.
But all of a sudden, if it's part of everybody's daily work stream, that's a whole nother step up.
I mean, you've got proof of concepts that are going on at businesses right now. Everybody's doing a proof of concept to try to figure out what they can improve their business with, right? And then there's the other side that you're talking about, Kyle, where how does it make my day better?
I think it's going to make your day worse before it gets better, but it's not going to take long. Like the fast answer, look at what it does. It's like, okay, it can generate content.
Yep.
Data analysis. Like there's a lot of different types of AI tools that you're going to see.
Right.
And then you might have a single front end, like ChatGPT is doing DALL-E, but it doesn't tell you that unless you go click on a thing to see what's behind all of it.
Right.
But I ask for a PowerShell script to run with SharePoint Online to do a thing, and it kicks it out, and that saved me an hour. Little things like that.
I assume you looked at it pretty closely and said, does this do what I want it to do?
Delete all sites, delete all content created by Peter Lawrence.
I mean, it fixes some problems and creates others that way, right?
Well, and here's the thing. I did that same story if I told it the first time I asked it to generate a PowerShell script when when its training was through September of 2021.
Yep.
Well, a lot of those commandlets had changed. Now I've created trouble for myself fixing all those things, going out.
No, this one's obsolete, man. We 2022, we kicked that one out.
This was 2 days ago. What are you talking about?
Right.
We're on something totally different
sometimes.
now. So yeah, you start out and maybe it's creating another problem for you to solve that you didn't know about. And I found that with Stable Diffusion and the audio one, the learning curve and the trial and error and all of that starting out, and just even, like it's not something that someone's going to go in and use like they could with what's on Bedrock, because Bedrock is so simple. Put in the prompt, pick your model, and I don't know if it even has negative prompt, but it's how creative should the AI be, or how much should it stick to what you typed in?
Right.
And it's that simple. I think that's the usefulness for people is the simplicity and the accuracy it kicks back. So, and then it's figuring out like use cases for it. I mean, we're seeing it getting baked into everything.
Right.
And it's like, well, this is new. I haven't used this program like this before. I haven't incorporated this before. The number of little pop-ups and messages and things that slide out to tell me things now is insane. Every time I open an Adobe product, it shows me like, hey, the generative AI is built in, and then I don't pay attention and I close it all and say, don't tell me this again. And then a month later, I want to use it. And I'm like, what was that? I know it told me about something really cool.
It has a clippy feeling to it right now.
Right now it does. And I think that could turn people off a little bit. So there has to, it's like, be patient, like I'm usually late to the party on stuff. I want to wait. I don't want to be the first guy to put the service pack in. And it's, you get set in your ways. This is how I do things. I'm going to do it the same way. So it's like stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit to try it out and figure out ways that's going to help you. For the business user, I'd say I don't see like spinning up a whole like bunch of hardware and then managing all of that. That'd be a full-time job just to sit and maintain your AI, keep advancing it forward as things change and improve, and then also keep it safe. But it's, the infrastructure versus the need. The power grid was fine. Well, then we all got internet access and bigger TVs and computers in our houses and better air conditioning and and then you throw electric cars on top of it. And it's like, okay, yeah, can we go nuclear? Can we start putting up some of those? Like, just get one of those submarines and drop it in a city and plug into it. They got reactors. They're safe.
Portable.
Yeah, portable. You got your own. What is that in the DeLorean? It's got its own little Mr. Fusion.
Mr. Fusion. That's what we need.
Just drop in your banana peel.
All right. So coming back to where home AI and some of the balances on the cloud AI. Sounds to me like, Cooper, if you just want to play around with something really quick and you want to just sink your teeth in a little bit, getting a cloud provider and playing around with AI is probably the way to start.
I would agree with that. And that's like on the personal side. And then there's like the business cases where it's easy to build out like proof of concepts. And I mean, if you don't have like a machine learning or like a data science team that isn't familiar with like making models, fine-tuning everything, having the Bedrock services seem incredibly helpful to companies because they just open up a lot of new opportunities. But I think if you really if you want to get into being able to customize everything and kind of tune it for exactly how you're looking for, to what Kyle's mentioning with the extra controls you get to do it on your own, that's indispensable.
Yeah, and then not having to think about the cost, because that's my fear, and it's of cloud stuff is somebody checking a box that costs us $10,000.
Well, there's a few horror stories, but there's a lot of guardrails that have been put in place now.
And I can mention I can mention like on the Bedrock piece, looked into it a little bit, but they have like the two different pricing models where they have, I mean, like the on demand. So I'm a user, I log into the website, I'm like, oh, I want to generate an image with Stable Diffusion. I'll just do that on demand. I don't have to commit to any amount of compute. Just click it, and then 8 cents later, I have an image. But for like, if we're doing from a company and we're looking at like a production workload, we need a consistent level of, say, bandwidth. If I'm remembering right, like the cheapest option for, I think it was just like the text generation to do the provision compute, or just like say, okay, I get a consistent amount of compute per month. It was like $30,000. So the companies will really have to they'll have to budget it in, or kind of keep.
So if you want your own ChatGPT running on AWS hardware, maintained by AWS, it's a little bit more than it's more than the price of a copy at your local library.
And that's the weird thing.
If you need to guarantee.
Yeah. That's what I found. Like, I was looking at a text-to-speech tool, and as soon as I wanted to convert, add my own voice, so I could just type stuff in and then hear it back as me.
Oh, great! So now Kyle's going to read
like
voicemails.
Well, I don't like to read books, but I like to read them aloud. But no.
Okay.
No, I always just goof around with it, and you could drop an audio file, and then it would sample your voice, and then be able to, it would train itself, and then you could impersonate Kyle, which there's no demand for, but
not yet.
And as soon as I wanted to do that piece of it, it took me to their premium page, and $700 a year, or like for that next, it was expensive.
It's almost worth it. Almost.
And no, I'll just read to you. Like, you can just give me the money.
We're just going to give Kyle $50 in the book, and here we go.
Just skip ahead. Yeah. So that's like, I see it, all these things being monetized, because somebody's got to pay for something. Like, it costs money, things, and the compute power and all of that.
Your laptop wasn't free.
The laptop wasn't free, but I think it was worth it. Just because of the gaming and then the side little gig I was doing. No, it's one of those things where you're going to need to figure it out, go get a toe in the water, going slowly. But then if this thing is going to be production, if it's going to like be used frequently and it's going to run all the time, then you're looking at a big price jump. I mean, when Microsoft announced their Sales Copilot, the entry level was you had to buy 300 licenses at, I don't know, $70 a month or something.
Okay.
So there's got to be a strong belief that it's going to help you. It's going to be worth it. So that, and there's a market for it, but it's like, okay, that puts it out of reach for a lot of places at that entry. I don't even have 300 people. Like, what am I going to do with all these extra licenses? I got, how many account execs do we have? So that was kind of a bummer, but it's like, well, are they doing that to,
that's phase one,
cut down on like the resource demand for infrastructure? And I think a lot of these things are doing that. These are deliberate steps to try to like keep things flowing along with, demand and capability, because you don't want it to fall off the rails and people to go, this sucks, I don't want it, and just not even look into it again. So I think it's smart. And I don't know that the expectation was there that it would take off as quickly as it did. All of a sudden the demand shoots through the roof, and we haven't even like seen it shoot through the roof yet.
It's been what, a year since GPT-3 has come out?
Yeah. They like just had a birthday.
Yeah.
So 1 year. That's 1 year. Pretty amazing.
And this is, it's just the beginning. Like, what is this all gonna, as so fast? So, and that's kind of why I like the more simplified UI, toe in the water, play around with it, see what it can do. GitHub Copilot seems to be gaining popularity. Yeah. And I think that's the other thing, is like figuring out which ones are, helpful. If you use an app every day to do your work, and an AI option, Clippy pops up and says, I'm way smarter now, I swear. I'm going to be way more helpful. I can seriously.
I know you're writing a document.
Yeah.
I don't think you are. I know it now.
Have you considered not, phrasing it this way, or I don't know, like
You're using a lot of passive voice here. Stop it.
Yeah. And that's all Grammarly does. I'm like, I'm in Minnesota. Like, that's all we know. Don't tell me to write in less than passive. I can't do it. No, I think that's where the focus is going to be, and looking at what's happening,
Right.
Like we just went through open enrollment.
Yeah.
And it's like you push the questions, like you open the floodgate for questions,
right?
Because there's a lot of information and it's confusing, and you got to sign up once and get it right for the year.
It's in the packet. All the information is in the packet.
It absolutely
Why didn't you read the
is.
packet?
You know what I found is that if I read something once, I get about 15% of it.
Right.
And it's just natural. I try. I'm like trying to read all of it. Then what I do is if I have a question, I go back and read it again. I don't want to be the one that asks about something that I was just told.
Ask the question that was answered on the first page.
Right. And if maybe you're embarrassed, like, about asking a question because maybe it's in here and no one else is asking. But so the idea of like a chat bot that you can ask benefits questions of, if it can give you the right answers.
I wouldn't be surprised if 2024 has that.
Well, and that's things one of the things and that's one of the things it's great at. So like Peter and I were sitting in at like a mini reInvent watch party yesterday at the office, and a big piece that they were talking about was like a RAG feature. So like RAG, which is like retrieval augmented something. That's where you take like your customer data. So you take like benefits data, and then combine it with the chatbot. So then if you're like, oh, what's this basic question that might be on the first page, you can use like the RAG, and then kind of it'll take your question, bundle it up with potentially like relevant information from the data, and then it'll like add it in the chatbot or in like the response. But it's really good. Like if it has a list of kind of like the Q&A answers, it's really good at kind of doing those responses.
Right.
So it's definitely like, it'll be fun to see what happens with that.
I think that's going to be a time next year.
I think one of the advantages, people spend so much time like looking for stuff and for what they need to do their job. And it becomes leaning over and ask the person next to you. And now you have a search party out there. But there's also I don't quite know the best way to use all these tools, but right. I know what I want to happen. Going into your chat AI front end tool and saying, I need to share this spreadsheet to gather, everybody's selection for the new sweatshirts we got. Like, I need this to happen. I can add, this is the best way to do that. Would you like me to do it for you? Yeah, please. Yes. Okay, it's done. A lot of the stuff I do is just giving people like a quick answer because I know it and they don't. And it's like, well, they're going to spend a half an hour, or they can ask a quick question in Slack and get an answer.
Right.
Like, well, that won't have to be me all the time. Because that's the thing, like just getting what you need.
Right.
And then actually getting help to do your job way better, like increasing the quality, increasing the accuracy. I mean, if I could point an AI at everybody's email box and say, get rid of all the junk that people are holding on to.
Stay away from my inbox.
Yeah. Well, I know you're
One
not
man's
that
junk
bad.
is another man's treasure.
I know whose mailboxes are the biggest, and I'd like to help. But there's a little bit of that happening, like auto archive and stuff like that. But you bring up a really good point, and that's trust. Would you trust it to clean up your stuff? Would you trust it to hit the delete button on something?
Not for me, no. I trust it to produce a list of things I should look at and delete.
There you go.
But I'm not quite to the point where I say, what you're doing.
So, final thoughts.
So I'll go first. My final thought is that I think using AWS is a great kicking off point to get your feet wet and in this new world. Switching over to sort of a laptop-based or computer-based is the way to take it to the next level to see if you want to go back to the cloud for the final improvements.
I see it as, for me, it's like a hobbyist. I'm just trying to see what it can do. I don't want to worry about, I don't want to sign up for anything that's going to cost me money or anything else. Like, I don't want to spend any more money on this, so I'll spend a whole bunch of money on this. No, I think it's a techie hobbyist type person if you're going to do this stuff at home and want the freedom to do whatever you want. In a business setting, I don't have a good use case other than wanting to get something and get compute power or what, like, or having that, needing to have all that customization, stuff like that. I don't really see a great use case for doing your own hardware in a business setting. Not when there's these tools coming out. There's so many of them.
Yep.
And then if you have a really strong use case for it, then you'll be able to, I guess, look at the price and see if the value is there.
Yep. Cooper, final thoughts?
I'll just add on to what you all said, because I absolutely agree with all those points. I can mention, like, could imagine doing like the local development. If you go onto a website that has a bunch of different models like Hugging Face, the things you can play around with is pretty insane. And then how often like new things are coming out or new updates are being made. Like Kyle talking about the audio generation piece. Like, I used to make music. I'm a huge music fan. I'm looking forward to the day when I can be like, hey, get in my music library and like generate me 10 songs that you think I might like.
Nice.
And then it all does that. And then I'm like, oh my God, these are my 10 new favorite songs.
Nice.
I had, because we had a few guys playing around with AI stuff. One of them was playing around with AI music quite a bit a few years back. And he made some music for like the podcast intro and stuff. And we decided not to use it. I finally got to use it yesterday.
Oh, nice.
It's in my secret project that you'll find out about Monday. It's in there, and he doesn't know it. And there's a credit at the end.
Fun.
Well, I figured he went to the effort several years ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to wait for stuff I was getting was taking a while, and I wanted to be done. Awesome. Well, we're going to dig way deeper into Bedrock. And, we've got an AI community, like learning community and stuff starting up. And so we're going to have a lot to say about it as we dig deeper into it. I'm looking forward to that. All right. I think with that, we could say goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Cooper.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.